Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul. And we are
SP Film Viewers.
As we said in the last episode, we're going to be covering a film called The Good, The Bad, The Weird. Which I say it like that because it's not got and.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's the differentiation from it as well. So it's not completely exactly the same. I don't know why that is, but it seems to makes you want to say good, the bad, and the weird. But yeah.
But weird about the fact that you can't say and the weird.
Yeah. Maybe that's the going for. I don't know.
Maybe.
But it is a Western action film.
Boo! I've only seen one Western, and if it's based on that Western, then am I going to actually like this Western?
Well, the synopsis sounds a bit similar.
Is it just going to be the same film?
But in Korean.
Yeah. How long is it?
The film is 4 hours.
What?
No, it isn't really. This is my reaction. 2 hours and 19 minutes.
How long's Good, Bad and the Ugly? 3?
That was nearly 3, wasn't it?
Okay. Cool.
But synopsis reads: a couple of outlaws and a bounty hunter find themselves being chased by the Japanese army and a group of Chinese bandits while in search for a map that leads to treasure.
So it's the same thing, pretty much. So you're making me watch a film. So you're wasting 5.5 hours of my time on the same film. Not
necessarily. I don't think it's got to have a different spin on it because they can't be outright going, well, this is shot for shot or anything like that.
How old is this film?
It came out in 2008.
Okay. So it's based on oldie times but modernly done.
Well, it's filmed in modern times, if you will.
It's in the 2000s, yeah. But it's based...
it's still set in an olden...
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah, okay.
Like 1930s or something.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. As far as I can tell from the screenshots and things. But, it's also, it looks by the cast, and it's got Kang Ho-sung, who was in Parasite.
Oh, okay.
And The Host and other films. I think he's a prolific Korean actor. Obviously, he's Parasite. I know we haven't done an episode.
He's quite comical, actually, isn't he?
Yeah. In that.
Who does he play?
I think he plays... I'm guessing by the post he's the weird one, which kind of maybe seems kind of fitting.
Oh, okay, yeah. That might be good then.
So if you see let's bring the picture up.
Does look comical. Maybe it might take a bit of a spin on it because there is a weird character, so there might be a bit more comicalness to it.
Yeah, I think so.
The good definitely looks like a goodie.
The bad
definitely looks like a baddie. Like ours, I don't know when we watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I don't know. I found it hard to defer with who was actually good. Apart from obviously, you had the golden boy with the golden hair, but didn't Blondie, mean he was actually good.
He was. It said, go and listen to that episode, and you know why.
Yeah. Right. Well, Nico, this one's for you.
Yeah. So good luck.
I hope you don't hate me by the end of it.
Yeah. And we'll be back with our thoughts on The Good, the Bad, the Weird.
In this here promo of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast, you either live by the gun or die by the sword. I'm Nico, just one half of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast, where my co-host Chris and I deep dive into everything good, bad, and weird the world of cinema has to offer, and some lighter reviews for movies we just felt like talking about. So if you're looking for not-so-family-friendly reviews of family-friendly movies, gorefest with hunky men, the bottom of the barrel flicks, or technically good films as determined by the cinema oligarchy, we're the right podcast for you. You can find us anywhere podcasts invade your ear holes and on social media at TGTBTW_podcast. So check us out. We have such sights to tell you about. Peace.
And we're back, having watched Good, Bad, the Weird. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it weird?
Yeah. In all retrospect, I think so.
Encompasses it all, really.
Yeah, I've not got a gripe with like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like the good is not good. You know, that's not my gripe with this. But I'm saying I've got a gripe. To be fair.
Okay.
I think actually I prefer this to the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I thought that might be the case as we were going through the film. Like, yeah, this has got a lot more action, more bang for your buck, I feel like.
Yeah, and I feel like it's more intriguing, it's more enticing. I feel like the good, the bad, and the ugly is just like a bit of a slog, and we're going to be comparing a lot because obviously it is pretty much the same film.
Yeah. Even obviously when I read the synopsis, you were like, yeah, this sounds very familiar territory. And as we went through the film, it's like, yes, this is kind of, in ways, kind of.
But I feel like with the good, the bad, and the ugly, where it has that army.
Certain Civil War.
Yeah, and then obviously they get put into the actual army itself and into the camps and into. Yeah. And I don't know, it just feels like, yes, okay, you're providing a piece of history and I understand why it's relevant and valid. But at the same time, it's quite drags on within that scene and you forget what you're actually there for.
Right.
Whereas this is always about the treasure. It's always about the good, the bad and the weird, trying to find this map basically to wherever this is leading them to. And I think the weird really brings a strong element into this movie, which I appreciate.
Yeah, as I said, we recognise him from Parasite.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He really is.
And so, he's very strong, and he's definitely the standout.
Yeah.
One of the three.
But then your bad is typically bad.
Like, he absolutely looks, he almost looks, I know this is a Korean film, he almost looks like an anime villain.
Yeah, he does.
Sort of like sweeped
hair. I really like that. I appreciate, like, straight away he's bad. And your good actually looks more good than...
Clint Eastwood's Blondie, yeah.
He does. Like, obviously, Clint Eastwood's, yes, he's dishy and he's got his blonde hair and everything. But this guy looks... Everything about him is just... It's so clean cut. The way that they've dressed him, the way they've styled him to make him look like a goody two-shoes. And I think he's got a quite angelic, good-looking...
He hasn't got, like, any facial hair, basically. He's kind of, like,
he's
smooth.
A baby.
Yeah, he doesn't look baby-faced, but I get what you mean, but it's kind of, like, smooth. Everything, like, his clothing is almost immaculate. Pretty much, even despite, obviously, the setting that we're in. It's kind of like, he's just bought it straight from the shop, kind of thing.
And then the bad, everything's quite more edge-cut, like, and silvery and black and that kind of metalish bad kind of...
Hard colouring, I suppose. Yeah.
Compared to where the good has the browns and it's more soft and naturey kind of colours, like earthy. And then you've got the weird.
It's just got, I think it's like greens, browns, all mishmash of colours. A thrown together outfit, essentially,
But the hat that he wears as well, like covering his little ears, and it just makes him more comical because it's like, he looks like a little boy at the same time as childlike but intelligent, and he's your main person. He's the one who's found the map initially and wants to find the elusive treasure, which while you're watching this, you're like, well, what actually is the treasure? Do they even know what they're going after? Everyone's just going on a wild goose chase after something that's called treasure, and everyone's treasure is a bit different.
Well, yeah. Normally, when you think of treasure, it's some like valuable, like gold or jewels or something.
Or money, yeah.
That's what I mean, like gold coins, of some caliber,
But you could treasure something in a different aspect. So what somebody thinks is valuable to them could be not valuable to somebody else. And literally everybody is now after this. And it's like, but you actually don't know what it is.
It kind of reminded me of a film. You kind of like were in and out of the room when I was watching it. It's a mad world where it's kind of like a similar thing where the kind of like a whole group of people are just doing at great lengths just to try and get this thing that's like a treasure of some like similar kind of thing, some kind, where there's like pursuing and they'll do any means necessary and they'll rush into this one point to get the reward at the end.
And I think that's the kind of lure with this, though. It makes it enjoyable because you're like, it's like a MacGuffin. Is it a MacGuffin?
Yeah, MacGuffin, yeah.
Because...
Except it isn't.
It isn't, because you figure out at the end, but the majority of the film, you don't really know what they're going after, and neither do they.
Well done for remembering that term, by the way.
Thank you! Oh, can we just... This was something else like now, because I've said MacGuffin and you're proud of me.
Yeah.
And I bagged brownie points the other day, and this is completely going off the film, because
yeah.
I knew the evolutions, and you were shocked that I knew the names.
Yeah, it came about. I think you were looking up something on Instagram or something, and it's like, oh, these seasonal evolutions. And you said, oh, that kind of looks like Glaceon. I said, I was kind of like taken back because I didn't know, thinking. No, then say I asked you pretty much what all the other forms were, and you got them all right near enough.
Yeah. I think I struggled with Sylveon, but we got there when she said it began with an S, but she's the shittest one anyway, so I feel like I give myself credit. But yeah, anyway. Sidetracking. Yeah. I feel like I'm keeping you on your toes lately. It's quite fun.
Mm-hmm. Circling back to
MacGuffin.
The film. Like at the very beginning, we start off with like a train robbery. Essentially, that's what. Mm-hmm. Which I think that's like normally a key thing in sort of Western films as well. Obviously, like the turn of the new like century with that, like locomotives coming to be with that. I was like, it was. I pointed out like that's the eagle that was kind of flying around. Mm-hmm. That was definitely CGI. Then I'm looking at the train thinking it might be a mix of both, but that also felt like a CGI train.
You think?
Yeah, because I'm just wondering, like, in terms of like the location where it was filmed, like to have this sort of expansive, open thing, like a desert type of area where it was actually located.
Yeah, but back in the day, you did need trains to go through these desert areas. But you would have.
Do you think it was a real train?
Well, now you're asking. I'm like, well, did I? But well, yeah. When I watched it, I thought it was a real train.
Okay. It doesn't
mean that. Not meaning this in daft way. It doesn't mean that this was filmed in Japan or in Korea.
No, that's what I'm saying. I know, but whether or maybe for certain shots, it will have been, like made to look like it.
Because that would be hard to be like walking on this unless it's just a studio set with them in the desert and they've got like an artificial train or something.
Anyways, yeah.
I thought that scene was really, really good, actually. To be fair, it gives you an opening to your characters and how they're portrayed. Like, initially we didn't know if Weird was the good. We weren't sure because the good hadn't arrived. So we were like, oh, is he the good one? But then I was like, it seems a bit too quirky. And I said, I don't know if he's weird. And you were like, oh, maybe. And then straight away when we saw the good come on, we were like, yeah, that's a given. He's...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they say he kind of takes it unbeknownst to him that it's actually valuable because he mistakenly, like an accidental scenario where he's got that, and then I didn't know how it was going to go. Like he was sort of oblivious for a majority of the runtime or something, that he would not know what or not realise what he had on him until like much later on. But I think it's kind of quickly turns out that he kind of realises, this, what this is worth. Because he's like shows it to his friend and all that and stuff, and that's actually more valuable than you think it is.
No, definitely, and I think he's aware that everyone else is aware of this map, and he can sense this kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Everybody's after me, and it's like a wild goose chase now after the Weird character. And I think this is where you kind of see. I think the reason why I like him as a character is, yes, he wants the treasure, but he's still quite grounded with how he is and the reasons why he's doing certain things. So he's got his granny,
yeah. Yeah.
And she's living with him and he's looking after her. And, well, he's kind of looking after her while he's running away from everybody. Mm-hmm. But he's wanting to give her a better life once he gets the treasure. That's kind of like his drive, his momentum. And I feel like anybody, not meaning this in a daft way, who's not in best situation always wants to do better for the family.
Mm-hmm.
So he's become a more lovable, relatable character instead of just wanting it for greed. And I feel like in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, it's all greed. It's not for...
Yeah, it's not help, like, a family member or a friend out or anything like that. It's face value. We just want money.
We're greedy, we want the
money. Yeah.
And we just want to screw everybody over just to get ahead, basically, and be better off than whoever. Whereas this is like, I'm wanting this so that I can get out of where I'm living, better something for my granny and look after her. And it's like, well, everybody wants that, don't they? Mm-hmm. So you feel like the Weird, I don't know, I felt more connected to him and more rooting for him throughout this film because of the little background we got. Like,
Yeah.
it got a lot of background in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, but it was so much that it was like, but not a lot of relatable subjects to really love the characters, if that makes sense.
Whether that's just a different time
Maybe.
of doing that, where you didn't need a whole. I might have said this before, like a whole backstory as to what the motivations are.
It didn't take long though, did it? That like literally in The Good, the Bad and the Weird, it wasn't a long scene. It didn't.
No.
It didn't take ages to give us like, I don't need to see all the grows up as a little boy
flashback.
from school. And,
yeah.
No, just like, okay, he's got a family, he's got a granny.
Yeah.
I don't need to understand where the rest of his family is.
Just that adds in a bit of humour as well, I think, in this because of that, really. So,
like, like when they all come at him at that house when he's got the map and he's like, oh, Granny, shoves her in the cupboard, and he's like, look after this, and it's like,
she's almost as more oblivious than
he
is on the surroundings and all that kind of stuff, and that somehow she survives all of like the shootout kind of thing. So it's like, I knew that obviously it wasn't going to be like, oh, she gets hit in the crossfire or anything like that, but it's like, oh, how did you survive all that gunfire? But there we are.
The cupboard, the wardrobe, no one knew she were in there.
No, but I meant as she was just walking around the room. I mean, but I think
all of it is quite funny and comical, and the way that he speaks and the words and lines he says, and his facial expressions. He is the key to this film being successful. Like, without him,
definitely, he's the big selling point. Was obviously, certain things like the bad, when kills and betrays people. It's like, well, yeah, you're the villain. We know that's going to happen. Like, bring the map and you'll be rewarded. And it's like, no, it keeps upping the price to like, give me, like, I'll give you that if you give me more than what you proposed. And it's like, oh yeah, it turns out, no, I don't actually have a thing. I'm just going to kill you anyway. So
yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, big shock,
Take all your money. Yeah. But I think with the bad, he is generally bad. Whereas within The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, not me, sorry, but I can't remember which one's bad or ugly, because to me that's the same thing, isn't it? Or is he just meaning appearance is ugly?
Well, I guess Tuco in that wasn't particularly like necessarily ugly, but other than the fact that he kind of was sort of essentially a backstabber, like switching whatever works in his favour, really, in that sense.
Yeah, but is that classed as ugly?
I mean, it's still like a bad tactic, but also an ugly side of doing that as well.
I guess, but it's just, I don't know, I feel like I struggled with that, like, definition of bad and ugly, whereas bad and weird, there's definitely a difference. Like, the weird is definitely completely, you can spot them from a mile off.
Yeah.
Whereas I think when I was watching The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, I was like, well, we obviously know Golden Boy's good, apparently. The other two, I'm like, well, I don't know, I just felt like it more faded in together, and to be fair, I put a lot of it to the back of my head. Whereas this, I would actually watch again, Paul. You'd be happy to know. And Nico would be happy to know, since they've named the podcast after it. A lot of pressure
was on this
for me to like this. I was really worried when we put it on, to be fair, because I was thinking,
what if I don't like it?
What if I don't like it? And then we've had them on as guests. You talk to Nico quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just be like...
He's going to be like so pissed off when he hears this. Yeah. Kind of thing, but it's positive light, I'm guessing you're putting on this, as opposed to...
Yeah, I enjoyed it. There was one good quote from this. If you chase something, life will always chase you back. And I quite liked that idea, because my mum always says, don't chase money, because it'll never come to you. Like, that's like her little saying, like, if you're out trying to get a bigger book every 2 minutes, it's not going to come. Whereas, like, if you just work hard for it...
Isn't that technically chasing money?
It is and it isn't, but you're working hard.
Not they're saying that you expect money to just fall in your lap.
No, I think it's you're working hard because you're enjoying whatever you're doing. Like, instead of going, I've got some money, so I'm going to go bet on whatever to get more money. And that's kind of like chasing money.
I know.
Or like, I'm going to quit my job and move here, even though I'm happy where I am because this company will pay me X, Y, and Z, but I could be miserable. That kind of...
What's just the risk,
perspective.
Take,
but the reason why you're moving is just to chase for money instead of happiness, whereas happiness is more important than how big your bank balance is.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I think this is kind of the same aspect. If you chase something, life will always chase you back. And it is all related to money. Like, the thing that they're chasing is money related. So it's kind of similar to what Mum's quote is, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I actually wrote down and was like, it's true. Because, like, if you go after somebody, or, like, in any action film, like, we watched Ghost Dog, didn't we?
Yeah, that was like a mafia film, but it had, like, Japanese philosophy. Kept coming up with quotes on the screen to make it more poignant, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think it's the same thing, isn't it? Because he was going out chasing somebody, and it was kind of like the mafia thing, well, or you've killed him, you didn't do it right, so now everybody's after you kind of thing. And that's kind of another way of thinking of being chased in life, like, when you do something wrong, it's always...
Someone's going to...
Karma's going to come back
and bite you, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, I quite like that. And I think I always love watching something that's based within, like, a Japanese or Korean kind of aspect, because their way of thinking of life is just a little bit more intuitive. They really have a good mindset of how they see things. I think they're a lot more advanced than we are.
I would say that goes without saying with obviously the type of filmmaking as well. The way they think about how a film is maybe structured or what to include, because typically like American Hollywood studio will generally do something more straight and narrow with how it should go, whereas this goes for any other, not just to say like Korean or Japanese cinema, that obviously if you watch a French language film or a Spanish or Italian, there's certain ways that they approach the filmmaking, and that's due down to obviously like they're normally targeting people in their home country, aren't they? So they understand, like those mannerisms, the way you might say something, or just your actions, and so
I think they think it more through, whereas not meaning in a daft way and not slagging off Hollywood in any perspective, but I feel like they go, oh, let's churn a movie out, right, that's done, let's churn another movie out, let's get the big bucks in, and they're chasing the money. Whereas I think other cultures, if they're doing it for just their country, or hoping it would be a success, but they're thinking about it, they're really putting the thought right into that film of why should it be a good film, and what can we do to make it enjoyable.
Well, in the case of this film, I definitely think there's definitely like a blockbuster influence, obviously, in the fact that the way that the action is put together. Really, there was like a whole portion, or several, wasn't there, where it was like almost like no talking dialogue whatsoever.
I liked,
and it was just focusing on the action.
But there was so much going on within those action scenes. Like, sometimes I get, like, if we're going on a generic American action film, I can get bored, and I'm like...
Yeah, with someone fighting.
And it's like, this is going on forever. And it's just boring, there's no dialogue. And I normally say I need dialogue. Whereas there was so much happening in these shots, so, like, that you get to a point, even when they're on the train, there's so many people, and you encountering, like, you're like, are they relevant? Who are they? What is this? And even towards the back end, when it comes to that massive, like, everybody's chasing the weird character, there's hardly any speaking in this point, and you're still like, oh, the Japanese army are coming in, and there's loads of trucks, there's all these different people, and you just sat there visually like, wow, okay, how did somebody direct this? Like,
yeah, because there's a lot of horseback riding on that scene in particular, and I'm thinking, like, back in the olden days, like, I say, Kurosawa films in Japan, where there's films like that, and there was no CGI involved in that. It was the horse they had or whatever, the shots that they would be utilised, and that's that. And that kind of feels like a modern take on that sort of filmmaking, where there's, how do you orchestrate all that to work in a shot, because there's so much, as I say, there's so much going on, and it's like one of them veers off too far or something, or like, and it's like, they've got to keep moving, and obviously there's cuts here and there and stuff, but it's...
No, I know what you mean,
and I think about it, it's a bit like, oh god, that's my head.
Yeah. So it kind of reminds me, when we look at that scene of Babylon, which we covered for my birthday special.
Yeah.
And it's the scene where she's putting on the tears and she's crying, and there's the Western kind of vibe. And then it just show you all the, like, chaoticness with the horses and everything else. And when I look at that scene, that's where it brings me back to how Babylon kind of show you how it's created and all the content that's going into creating a scene like that.
Yes.
What was great about it is it was gripping. It was I was infused within the scene because there was so much going on. I wasn't bored. I was really intrigued on how it was all going to pan out within every single action point we had.
It's back to
at
the filming.
The film, yeah. And I think
yeah.
What's the success
of it? Yeah, I don't know actually how successful this film was to not the international audience, but obviously for say US, UK, whatever. But
it is 2008, and I know that sounds daft, but back then we were a little bit less cultured in the aspect of appreciating, I feel, films like this. I feel like now, like if this had come out like when Parasite did, I feel like this would have had a lot more respect given to it.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean just obviously because there's been plenty of like classic films that were bombs. I think even The Shining was like slated from
because it's shit.
And things like Blade Runner and
I haven't seen that way.
No, I haven't seen Blade Runner, but it being like that's like such a big cult film now, but everyone was like, nobody.
Is that on your list for us to watch?
It is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets a market. Let's say for like the obviously like home video or like has a cult following long after the fact, and to be honest, that's more longevity and saying not necessarily from. But obviously, box office figures do matter, but at the same time, if someone can find appreciation from it in a different light, and then it goes, oh, actually, let's reevaluate this a little bit. And
I feel like sometimes with these kind of films, I feel like if it's not done so well, actually, it's a bit better. Like, I think sometimes when you go into a film like, for example, Poor Things, sorry, Jazz, and it's hyped up so, like, it's amazing and it's fantastic.
Some of them are Oscar bait films, yeah. And
you're just a bit like, you watch it and you're like, was it as great as I thought? Whereas this, I came in really negative to this film, like when we watched.
This one?
Yeah, because I was thinking it was going to be like The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Right. So I was a little bit like, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy this. It's a Western. The first Western I watched, I didn't really like. So I was like, is it going to be literally trying to be a like for like, but a different culture? And I'm just watching the same thing twice. That's what I was worried about.
Right.
But it's not the case, so I'm so glad.
Yeah, it's because of it having the Korean spin on it, as it were.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's just the quirkiness. It's the comedy in this that outshines The Good, the Bad and the Ugly.
Before we were watching it, I thought it was going to be somewhat wacky. But at the same time, it's like, I didn't know if it was going to be like for you, like too over the top in terms of like the action stylings.
I've noticed something about me.
Yeah,
that I'm learning so much when we do these podcasts about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is I love a good Japanese or Korean or anything kind of like that Asian kind of wacky style. I adore it. Like I used to watch Takeshi's or Takeshi's Castle?
Yeah,
I absolutely would find that hilarious. But then I think there's a UK version. Oh, I forgot what it's called. Bradley Walsh is on it. He's the presenter.
Right.
But it's just not half as good. And I think it's because of the way that they think of these things. Like, Takeshi's Castle is just so absurd that it's hilarious. Like, we'll just make you climb on this ball and, like, you have to stand on it or roll. And it's just...
Yeah.
And then I think that's the same with, like, Hausu.
Yeah, that's OTT, and you enjoyed that as well.
Yeah. And I think... So I don't mind OTT comedy when it's so far-fetched.
That you can't ground it in reality.
Yeah. Whereas like Bridesmaids shitting in the middle of a street.
Or I think...
It makes you cringe more.
Yeah. Or like, I remember it was just on TV once. We were like, is it Meet the Fockers or something?
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Stiller's character's there, and there's blood spurting out, and you were like, oh god, like, oh no, that's just wouldn't happen, kind of thing, like just going, oh god, or whatever the scene it was. But that's obviously in a normal scenario.
Yeah, I could relate to it.
But then it's like, that wouldn't happen. because it's like nothing ghostly or like guns that don't exist or machinery or any of that kind of stuff.
And I think that's what it works, and the dialogue works, and his facial expressions within this are just, they're on point, aren't they? Every time he's like looking at something, he's just comical. He's just got that essence to him. And I don't know, I think maybe because I can't go, oh, well, I've not stolen a map. I'm not on a motorcycle trying to outrun horses, which, I don't know, I thought the horses would be faster, to be fair. Because I don't know how well a motorcycle would be driving on sand.
It was fairly flat, wasn't it? It wasn't like just sand dunes and everything,
It's still quite soft, depending on...
I don't know if it was like completely like, I say, like Sahara Desert type of sand consistency. But open plains, obviously, I don't think it would work completely, even for horses to be running through sand, it wouldn't really work, so...
True.
But in terms of it feels like, obviously, it's one of those, like, set in the olden times, or it's like 1930s, isn't it? But it somehow still has that almost like steampunk style, like with the guns and all the things, like this sort of technology that feels like wouldn't necessarily exist at that point, but again, for the absurdity of the action the film's going for, then it's like, you're on board with it, and you just take it for what it is. Yeah. You're not going, oh, well, that's not historically accurate.
No, you're not. And I think a bit of a modern twist on it as well works.
Yeah, because it makes for a fun time, really, overall.
It went really quickly at the time, because I was thinking it was quite long, I thought, and it's not as long as The Good, The Bad and The Ugly, but it's still longevity, and I was like, But actually, it's just overall a wonderful piece, and you're really rooting for the weird. Like, I always like it when you've got a character you can root for and you care for. It makes you feel more connected and involved into the film. And even when we have a shootout, it's not like they do the eyes, but I swear to God, they don't do it as long.
They do. I just said that. Oh, look, here's the close-ups of them looking around at each other. Yeah,
but it doesn't feel as long, and the faces they're not just staring. They are like kind of doing the funny kind of look.
Expression.
Yeah, they are more expressive. And it's not confusing. Like, I got confused with The Good, The Bad and The Ugly of how the shootout worked.
Mexican standoff, you mean?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Because obviously The Good had stolen the Ugly's?
Yeah, Tuco's,
gun in the middle of the night. So,
he took the bullets. Took it out, so that he wouldn't get shot. Yeah. So he only had to focus on
the bad.
Yeah.
Whereas in this situation, it wasn't like that. It was pure daytime. It wasn't like they were going to sleep and then waking up and somebody could shaft one another, basically.
Yeah.
It was like a shootout, so it was
Well, although earlier on, when they're at the Good and Weird are at the campsite, and then Weird then, like, standing over Good with a gun, and then he just, like, skedaddles on his motorcycle again.
But you kind of see it in his head that he could trespass him, but it's like, well, he hasn't really done me any harm, really. If anything, he's got me here further than I would have been without him. So when they're having that kind of Mexican standoff, shoot off, I was really overthinking it. I was like, well, if the good shoots the bad, which you feel like they have a connection.
Well, they definitely do, because they pointed out 5 years ago, chopped off his finger. So it refers to as the finger chopper.
So that's the bad's with the weird.
Yeah, so that's the beef, essentially, because...
But there's also beef with the good and the bad, where he's like, oh, him again, because he always comes in on his horse and he shoots out everybody.
But that's typical, isn't it? You have your goodies and baddies, and it's like, you foiled me again type of...
It makes you think that the good and the weird would shoot the bad first.
And just, be done with it.
Yeah, and then it'd be left with them two. That's what it makes you feel should happen. But, I don't know, they all get shot... I can't describe actually now which one gets shot first. But you're a little bit like, well, is that it? Who's kind of shot who here? So there's a couple more shooting going on as well. It's not just like a pa-choom, right, okay, he's dead. It's
not
like
one shot. Yeah, it's not like continuously like, oh, right.
Make sure you're dead.
Yeah, keep going. And
then even when they're laying down and they're kind of getting back up again and going, ching, which adds the comedy value, it does. And you do think they're all dead, and I'm like, well, what even is the treasure?
And I thought initially, which I think it kind of... I'll get to this in a minute, but the fact that when there's obviously digging and then this oil bursts up, I'm thinking, oh, that's the treasure all along. It was, it was an oil tap, essentially, where that spurts out. It's like, oh, well, this is down in the ground where they could have made a fortune just off that, because obviously that kind of thing is very valuable. And I believe it shortly cuts to black, doesn't it?
I thought that was it.
And that was the end and I spoke to Nico about this, and he said, like, oh, we're going to be covering the film. I said, oh, are you going to talk about the alternative ending? I was like, oh, right. I didn't know there was that, because as I say, we just watched the Korean version, which in the Korean version, there is an extra, like, 5 minutes or so where it continues, whereas I'm guessing in other parts of the world, that's the black fade cut to black is where the film ends.
I'm glad we didn't watch that. I'd have been miffed.
Like, oh, okay, yeah.
I'd have been properly miffed off.
Whereas, so with this one, Weird gets up, and he's really like, he's like, why am I so heavy? And it's like, oh, he's got a metal plate underneath him the whole time to protect him from the gunshots. So yes, thinking on his feet with having.
Well, it's not daft.
Yeah, to do that, and then he finds the treasure, which is the like diamonds that are on the bad's person.
Yeah, but I don't think that is the treasure, because the bad took that from the guy that he was saying, I'll give you more money because I'd done the job, and he didn't do the job right for the map. Didn't have the map. So that's why he shot him, and he stole them. So I still think generally the oil is the treasure, but because these guys are very naive and think treasure is monetary value, and they can't seem to associate the oil with what it can bring at that point. So I don't think it's the diamonds. Yeah. I think it is the oil. That's where the map led to, because them diamonds would never have been there if.
Yeah, true.
But for the weird character, the diamonds will give him more money and help his granny, and if she's still alive, because we don't know that, we don't see him going back to her.
No.
Get himself a new motorcycle and all of that.
But there's more added comedic value with the sort of like dynamite that like sort of like,
because obviously he's on an oil rig.
Then the Japanese army come and find him, and it's like, oh, we're gonna like the
and I think the weird comes in again, and the humour comes in, and I think that ends you knowing that the weird character is gonna be okay. You assume that the bad and the good are dead.
No, the good still survives, because don't remember it at the end. There's like wanted posters with the two of them up. Yeah. The weird's now got, I think, a higher price on his head. So it'll update the picture and all that thing on the wall, but the good's still around, whether he's see the bounty for
you're right.
Weird perhaps, but
the bad is dead.
Gone and gone. Well,
works well.
As it should be, really, for how he's and that's his character of the bad being
it's karma that he's chased everything and karma's bit him in the bum. So with this, obviously neither one of us have seen this, right? So that means you have to score first, unless you've got anything else to add, that is.
No, I don't really have anything else to add, really.
I'd be really interested to understand why, from watching the film now, why the podcast is for Nico is the Good, the Bad and the Weird podcast. Unless maybe they bring good, bad and weird possibly into their podcast, and that's quite...
That's what they normally do at the end of their episodes.
They do the voting, don't they?
Based on that,
Yeah.
So...
But maybe it's
the points with
scoring
of it with like what's good, what's bad, is there any weird in this film or whatever, I think, really. But...
Yeah.
Right.
So no pressure, Paul.
I was say I'm definitely glad to have had a chance to see this now, because I don't think it's particularly easy to get hold of on disc, unfortunately. So it's one of those kind of... So I'm glad Mubi helped us out this time, having the subscription to that with some of these, obviously, like foreign films, and that being on there, because I thought that normally there's kind of like the uppity, like high benchmark, like just drama films I thought they just have, but it's kind of good that they've branched out a little bit more with the diversity of films they've got on there, but it's by the by. And I'm going to give this 8.5.
Okay.
So I'll definitely watch it again if I can.
That was a fair point, yeah.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot to appreciate in terms of the style and, I say, the engaging for what it is. And it, like I say, it's a foreign take on the good, the bad, and the ugly, I suppose.
It's better.
And I can't really say too much negative about it, really.
What could you say negative? Well, no, I don't think we have said anything negative.
But the score reflects like what is in terms of like an action film, really, just like for a good time, really. Yeah, and that's more that I can say on it. Really, I can't because there's no like real glaring flaws. There've got to be 10 or anything like that. But I think that's
no,
I understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. What's your score?
So for me, I would say it's probably a 8. I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed the humour. I enjoyed the comedy aspect of it. I enjoyed a different version of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and how it's a Western that I actually enjoyed. I would watch it again. I think the action and the visuals are brilliant, and they're enticing and they're gripping. I think the story, you're really rooting for somebody and you connect. So I think overall, it is a good watch. I wouldn't say it's like the best film I've ever seen and I want to be like mark it in my top 10, but it's not obviously far from the worst film I've ever seen. And I can appreciate what it has to offer and the uniqueness it has.
It brings to the Western genre, I suppose. Yeah, so it's very, very different from your typical Western films, but in a good way. Yeah. So
glad I've seen it. It's not just a film I've seen.
It's good to know. So that's good praise, Nico, from both of us, I'd say.
I think I did better than you.
What do you mean?
Praising wise. Sucking up to Nico.
Yeah. See.
You don't need to.
Well, thank you very much for listening to this episode. Hope you've enjoyed our thoughts. And if you would like to check out some of our other episodes, you can do so by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get podcasts from. As always, if you would like to leave us a 5-star review, you can do so by going on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, and wherever else they do the scoring system. Very much appreciated.
It will. So if you haven't decided to follow us already on social media, then what are you waiting for? Obviously, it is February, so it is the month of love. So send all your love our way by following, liking, subscribing. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter. So remember them all. So if you want to follow us, we're under the handle SP_filmviewers.
Also like to shout out the Patreons, of course, for their continuing support with the show.
Whoop whoop.
And we're going to start with Nico from The Good, the Bad and the Weird podcast.
I don't think we've heard who this person is, have we? It's not like we've mentioned him several times.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Good, the Bad and the Weird podcast is The Good, Bad and Weird. So yeah, go listen to them. And obviously, thank you for the recommendation of the film.
We also got Mark from 100 Things to Learn from Film, Ben from Film Vloggers, 2 other movie review podcasts.
Yeah, so we've guested on theirs, they've guested on ours, so you can go and give them some love and listens. We've then got our dearest and dearest family and friends then. So we've got my wonderful mum. We've got Alex under the handle Desperately Seeking username on Instagram. We've got Shani on Instagram under the handle SDOG.
We've got our friend Jonesy, who is at Weight Loss Jonesy on Instagram. We've got Emma, who is at M_Hayton on Instagram. And last but not least, we have our friend Gren, who is at CGren_draw on Instagram.
So if you do want to become a Patreon, all you have to do is spend £1, £1, or $1.50 if you're American. Then you can get the perks of voting for a film a month and being shouted out like we've just done for you every single week.
So to do that, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/ patreon.com/SB Film Viewers to get all those wonderful perks, and you'd be doing us a great favour by helping us out, supporting the show.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that we're creating a little family and everybody really likes us and wants to listen to us. Because, that's the reason why you do these things, isn't it? I do enjoy just talking to you, to be fair. And I always think it's quite nice that we're going to have a little archive. Like, if one of us dies, then we can just listen to this podcast. Even if it isn't going to go worldwide,
that's
at least.
Nice morbid thought, yeah. Well, we've come... And for the next episode, it's going to be quite special, as it's going to be our 200th episode.
Mm-hmm. And it's even more special because we've got a special guest.
Yeah, and that's worked out quite nicely, actually.
Yeah, you've been trying to do a special guest a month, so if people are interested, I don't know if you've got a full listing lined up yet, but we are trying to get a guest on at least once a month, so if people are wanting to join us, then please do reach out to us.
Yep.
But yeah, it should be a good episode coming up as well, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
Do I get a gift for doing 200 of these?
Beg the people to...
No, I mean from you. I mean, I knew a MacGuffin, I deserve something.
You get a MacGuffin as a...
No, that's awful.
Like,
that's just a nightmare.
Is that what I think it is?
Never get to see what I'm given.
Yeah.
It's just cruel.
Thank you very much for listening once again, and we will speak to you next time.
Speak to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.